LA.gov. The numbers and web links for all three services, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. While we have no indication to believe that passwords were included, we know that passwords were not included in the data that was involved in this breach. We are recommending, as a best practice, that people change their passwords as soon as possible, and on an ongoing basis, the best practice is to change passwords every 90 days. It's also a good practice to protect your tax refund and returns with the Internal Revenue Service, and to check your Social Security benefits and report any suspected identity theft. These are all free steps that you can take. And again, this remains an ongoing investigation. The state will continue to update nextsteps.la.gov with additional information as resources are identified and as we have updates on the impacts of this event. I want to close before questions with just a brief word about the weather. So as you may have seen in Texas, Oklahoma, and even Florida, Mississippi last night, Louisiana also had some severe weather along the I-20 corridor. And so we've got some communities recovering from trees that may have been blown down, strong winds overnight, and a number of power outages. At this time, GOSEP is tracking about 180,000 power outages across North Louisiana, and we're remaining in contact with parishes in the impacted area to support them in any needs that they may have. And you're also aware that we are in hurricane season, and that there is a storm out in the Atlantic, or system out in the Atlantic, that's being tracked by the National Hurricane Center. At this time, that poses no threat to Louisiana, but it's always a good reminder for people to be ready as we are in hurricane season. And with that, I will stop and be willing to answer some questions. Yes, sir.
Are any other agencies besides OMB affected by the data breach?
At this point, we have no reason to believe that data outside of what we've identified has been exposed. Certainly the scale of the data in the OMV data is so large as to involve most Louisianians, so that's the scope of what we're dealing with. Yes, sir.
Can you say what type of measures are being put into place to protect citizens at other state agencies, at LDR, LDH? LDR obviously has people's bank account information. Is there additional stuff being done to make sure that those agencies aren't hacked?
So we are looking at all of the potential systems that were involved with MOVEit. As soon as we were notified that there was an issue, protective measures went into place involving that software, and our investigation has revealed no other issues. Obviously, this is ongoing, and so we'll continue to work that and be looking at ways to ensure that for this or for other issues that we've got that data taken care of. Yes, sir.
Is MOVEit now secure, or have we moved to another data transfer service?
So I don't want to get into the day-to-day on that, but we have updated the software with all of the patches that the vendor has put out, and we are following and working with our federal partners, both CISA and FBI, on additional measures to take to ensure that that system is safe, and so we're tracking that very closely. Yes, ma'am.
We know that people with state-issued IDs have been affected, but what about people who have previously had Louisiana driver's license or car registrations? Do we know if they're going to be affected by the breach?
I can't answer that completely, but the scale of this would be that it would be wise to take protective action. Yes, sir.
The governor said that he was briefed on this yesterday morning at 11 a.m., but a source tells us that his office actually knew about this about a week ago. Can you tell us when anybody in his office was first notified that of these potential threats?
So I don't want to get into the exact notification here. I think the important part is that we knew Wednesday night the scale of the data that was involved, and we met the next morning to walk through what that meant. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk more about freezing your credit? Do you recommend everyone use all three platforms to freeze their credit, and how long does this last? Can you talk more about what this really means and why you might be at risk if you don't do this?
Yeah, so certainly everyone should utilize all three services in freezing their credit, and just follow the instructions on their website and the information that they have. We'll put some additional information on nextstepsla.gov about that, but all three services should be utilized. And the important thing there is that it doesn't keep someone from being able to utilize their own credit, but it ensures that should someone else try to access their credit, that they will be notified, and that's why it's important. It's a best practice at all times, but certainly in the scope of what we're dealing with here. Yes, ma'am.
Can you estimate or just quantify exactly how many people have been compromised with the breach?
So the exact number of data is, I believe, in the excess of 6 million records, but that is duplicative, right? Because some people have both vehicle registrations and driver's license, and so the simple answer there is that everyone that had one of those likely had their data breached. Yes, ma'am.
I know you said you don't know if the data has been sold or used or shared, but has there been an uptick in a number of people suspecting that they've had identity theft?
I'm not tracking anything related to that.
What should people do if they've noticed a change between the time you guys were notified until the time the public was made aware?
So I think the best practices come into play. At that point, there is information on reporting both to the, so if they've seen activity on a particular card or if they've seen activity on a particular account, they should talk to that company about freezing that account and handle their charges with that company. And then there's some information on the website also about the information that they can provide. Hang on just a second so that I get it correct. With the Federal Trade Commission on identitytheft.gov. So, and all of that will be put on our website as well. Yes, sir.
Is this a worst-case scenario for Louisiana? And if not, like, what are you guys doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
So I don't want to get into how bad could bad be. I think it's serious when we're talking about all Louisianans that have one of these IDs that potentially have their data. I think what we've seen is the scope of this doesn't just involve governmental entities. And so that's going to be something that continues to evolve. Yes, sir.
Last question?
Y'all have put out, you know, a great list of resources for people individually to steps to take to react to this. But I guess, like, you know, on kind of a system level, this is hardly the first time this has happened. It continues to happen. Is the state prepared, and what's holding us back from, you know, stopping this from happening repeatedly?
Yeah, I think in terms of the scope of this one, it's going to be clear that Louisiana is not the focus of this. This was an issue with a vendor that's widely utilized in across both government and non-government and private sector. I think the team that we have that was able to investigate and figure out what the limits of the breach were and act as quickly as we did in terms of identifying what data was in place and then notifying the public as soon as we knew that shows the team that we have and the experience that we have in this space. Thank y'all very much.